This is Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details. Here are your hosts, Joe, Matt, and Chris.
We are getting a Week 7 rematch between the Philadelphia Eagles and the LA Rams, in which we saw the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely drub them. They beat them, what was it? I believe it was 38 to 20, if I'm not mistaken. 37, I apologize, to 20. It was only 17 points, not 18. How dare I? How dare I add one extra point to the total as if it fucking mattered in the first place? All right? That's a 3-score difference. Yeah. 1 point fucking matters in a 3-score game. You're right. Totally fucking matters. Either way, the Eagles defense really showed up in that game. The Rams have since found their offensive identity. They're fully healthy. That defense is coming along. We just saw what they did to the Vikings in that top offense in which Sam Darnold was an MVP candidate before he showed up in that one and laid an absolute egg and lost probably a couple $10 million annual value off of any contract he's going to get in the offseason. But we're not here to talk about the Minnesota Vikings because they are who we thought they were. We're here to talk about the LA Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles. And this right here is probably going to be a very, very hard-fought game. I think both of these teams are really, really good. I think the Eagles, we already know what the Eagles are. We know what they can be. Jalen Hurts is back. We know what Saquon Barkley is. We know the wide receivers they got. And they're so not concerned right now with the matchups that you got A.J. Brown reading books on the sideline, pushing those things to number one in Amazon store when he's not watching the game. If you guys didn't see that shit, he's literally sitting there with a self-help book sitting on the sideline, just flipping through pages because you know what? It's all business all the time because they're not really worried about it until it's Super Bowl time, baby. That's what they're looking forward to. And they only have one other stop to make if they win this weekend, and that could be in Detroit or possibly in an upset. They could go to Washington, which no one's really picking right now. But here is the keys to this game. And I'm going to go to Matt on this one first. Matt, I need to hear your key matchup for Rams.
He's very
Eagles.
excited.
I'm always excited. I'm just happy to be here talking with Joe and Chris. I'm happy to be here talking with just Joe and Chris and nobody else. Listen, the matchup of this game is obvious to me. Okay, this is a very obvious key matchup. It's the best secondary in the NFL and the Philadelphia Eagles against arguably the best wide receiver duo in the NFL in Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. The Eagles' pass defense this year, best in the NFL by far, 174.2 yards per game. Pass yards per attempt, 5.5 yards per attempt for quarterbacks going up against the Eagles secondary. Also best in the NFL, and they were also sixth in completion percentage, 62.2% when thrown against the Eagles. That was sixth, like I said, best in the NFL. And again, this secondary changed completely in one draft. You draft Cooper DeJean and you draft Quinyon Mitchell, and sure enough, there you go. With a C.J. Gardner-Johnson return mixed in, you got the best secondary in the NFL after a year before going from 253 yards per game, which was the second worst in the NFL. So they went from second worst secondary in the NFL to the best secondary in the NFL with 2 draft selections and C.J. Gardner-Johnson being added in. Absolutely amazing turnaround from the Eagles secondary, and they just bagged Jordan Love and those receivers. Jordan Love had 212 yards, no touchdowns, 3 picks, and a 41.5 rating. So they were absolutely bagged, the Green Bay Packers. And again, you watch that game, they literally never had a chance to win that game, in my opinion. They just looked like they had no shot for the Green Bay Packers. So, and then on the Rams side, like I mentioned, we know about Cooper Kupp. We know about Puka Nacua. I'll talk about him a little bit more if you want me to. Puka Nacua, obviously, he's been the feature guy this year. You look at his numbers, especially since he came back. He got hurt earlier in the year, but his numbers since he's came back, he's been one of the best receivers in football. And Cooper Kupp, here's his stats as of late. 5 catches on 10 targets for 82 yards. But that's in the last 4 games that he's played in. He's only had 5 catches for 82 yards in the last 4 games. That sounds like an average Cooper Kupp game, one game regularly, and that's his last 4 games. So, again, they're going to need, especially against this secondary, we're going to need to see way more Cooper Kupp. But both of these guys, listen, both of these wide receivers, we already know they're big-time playoff performers. Puka Nacua broke the rookie record for playoff yards in a game, his first playoff game against Detroit last year with 181. That record was actually already broken again this year by Ladd McConkey. But again, 181 yards in your first playoff game, pretty damn impressive. And then everybody knows about Cooper Kupp, his legendary 2021 playoff run. First of all, triple crown in the regular season, 145 catches, 1,947 yards, and 16 touchdowns, led the league in all 3. And then his playoffs, listen, wildcard round, 5 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown, light game. Divisional round, 9 catches, 183 yards and a touchdown. Conference championship, 11 catches, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns. Super Bowl, 8 catches, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a Super Bowl MVP. Greatest receiver season ever, and it's not even close from Cooper Kupp in 2021. He's not going to have to be that guy. And again, I don't think he's that player anymore, but he's still pretty damn good. Okay. He's much better than he showed the last 4 games, and they're going to need him to produce like it if they're going to beat Philadelphia. So I think Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp versus Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, and that Eagles secondary is going to be what decides this game in Philadelphia.
I mean, when you got 2 of the best wide receivers, like I said, one of the best wide receiver duos, if not the best wide receiver duo in the NFL, it's hard not to pick that as your key matchup. And you're talking about the secondary that they have over there in Philadelphia. Quinyon Mitchell, who was my CB1 in this draft, I thought he was the best corner in this draft, and he has balled out this year. Cooper DeJean, who I was kind of iffy on how well he would transition to the NFL, has played great for them. I was wondering about his speed and his quickness. Coming from the Big Ten, we usually don't see a lot of those guys in the secondary really do all that well unless they're coming from Ohio State or Michigan, realistically, but he was playing at Iowa, which is known for big, hard-nosed football, not so much the speed and athleticism that we are used to seeing unless you're a tight end. That's tight end you. But they have absolutely hit on all of those draft picks, and it is showing on the field. They are putting a lot of young talent out there. And, the Rams are no slouches to young talent either. They have Jared Verse out there. Fisk is out there for them, both FSU players right there who are absolutely generating, just tons and tons and tons of promise from those 2 guys. So this is really young defenses that are going to go up against each other and try to slow down these dynamic offenses, which have a lot of things. And realistically, Kyron Williams has had a pretty good season. Granted, it's not like Saquon Barkley-esque, but he beat Saquon in touchdowns. He had 14 touchdowns. And, in the Week 7 matchup, you really didn't get to see some of the things that we're going to see in this game. So you can almost take that Week 7 matchup and throw it out the window, because I don't think this is the same Rams team we saw then. But that does not mean that some of the things aren't going to hold true. By the way, in that game, Matthew Stafford was sacked 5 times. 5 times. That is a lot. That is a lot of times to put Matthew Stafford on the ground. But I'm going to go to Sammy on this. Do you agree with Matt and his key matchup?
Of course I don't agree. Okay, what are we doing here? All right. Look, no, actually, I ironically enough, I think that was actually my X factor. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupps were my X factor because they're facing one of the best passing defenses in the league. And if Cooper Kupp can even get close to what he was back in 2021, look, this Eagles team is going to have a lot of problems. But all right, look, the odds of that are pretty slim. I don't think we could just turn back the clock like that, but I had a different key matchup. Look, last time Saquon Barkley faced off against the Rams, it was not pretty for the Rams in particular. I believe the stat was 255 rushing yards. Yeah, 255 rushing yards, 9.8 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. What the hell? What the heck even is that? How is that even possible? Well, the Rams made it possible. Now, this is actually shocking because the nose tackles and the defensive tackles for the Rams are good. Braden Fisk is good, right? Kobe Turner is good. Bobby Brown is really good. These are some great defensive tackles. You also have some great pass rushers too. Byron Young and Jared Verse. This is a pretty solid young defensive line. I'm very excited for the future, especially after losing Aaron Donald. There was a lot of questions concerning this defensive line. And although they're not really getting to the quarterback at a crazy rate, at the very least, they have some young pass rushers to really build upon in the future. My key matchup is simple. The interior of the Eagles offensive line against the defensive tackles of the Rams. Okay, they cannot let Saquon Barkley do whatever the hell kind of black magic he did against the Rams back in Week 11, okay? It cannot happen again. If it happens again, you're going to get 37-20. And ironically enough, if the Rams want any chance to win this game, you got to let Jalen Hurts beat you straight up. You can't, because looking at just the statistics alone and even looking at the eye test, look, Jalen Hurts is clearly a limited QB. I think at this point we can say it. Pretty obvious. Of course, he has the ability to scramble out of the pocket and make some magic happen with his legs. He does have a good deep ball. I've always thought that about him. Here's the thing, though, and here's the bottom line. Their passing offense is awful. It's the 30th ranked. And against the Packers, it was kind of showing. They couldn't really get going. Now, granted, this is a Packers defense that has been very, very good. It was very good all year long. Okay, I would say it was, for me, a top 10 defense. I thought with Jair Alexander, it was a top 5 defense. I was thinking very high. I was very high on the Packers all year long. Now, I will say this. Can the Rams get 9 sacks against the Eagles offensive line? Absolutely not. Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? Like, what are we doing here? And I have a stat here. This is a fun stat. The Vikings allowed 24 pressures. 24 pressures, all right? That is an insane stat. And it is even more insane when you think about only 11 of those pressures came within 2.5 seconds. So that means 13 of the pressures that happened were past 3 seconds, essentially, which is absolutely insane and is a testament to Sam Darnold. As bad as Jalen Hurts, not bad, as mediocre at times Jalen Hurts can be, I don't think you can get as low as how Sam Darnold played. So that's my key of the game. You got to, if the Rams want to win this game, control the run game and make Jalen Hurts become a passer, and you might have a chance to win this game.
I mean, yeah, that's really what it's going to come down to. I mean, we've, like you said, I think at this point we know what Jalen Hurts can and can't do. I think he could pop off for 340 plus yards passing. Absolutely, sure he can, and it's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. One time here and there, it's going to happen. But the good news is that, like you said, the running game has been good enough for the Eagles all year that they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to worry about whether or not Jalen Hurts goes for 340 yards. It's not the Bills, that have to worry about their quarterback popping off. It's not the Ravens. It's not the Kansas City Chiefs that rely on their quarterback to elevate everyone else. It's not those teams. They put a team around Jalen Hurts to be for a term that people, make a villainize out of it. They kind of they don't like the term. Game manager. I mean, that's what he is. He game manages and allows people to do what they do in that offense. And just literally, Nick Sirianni goes, "Hey, don't turn the fucking ball over, guy, and we're going to win." That's all you got to not do is don't turn the ball over, and we have a shot. And that's all he's got to do. And to be fair, in that Week 7 game, Sam already pointed out, Saquon Barkley popped off. The Eagles just rushing offense went for 314 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. They had 5 runs over 10 yards in that game. The Eagles absolutely ran down the Rams' throat in Week 7. Right, now, granted, the rookies on that team have developed since then. They're playing better. The young guys are playing better. But that is a hell of a lot of rushing yards for just in one game. All right, that is insane. And it just goes to show you why Saquon Barkley had a shot at Eric Dickerson's record. But I want to go to Chris on this one. We've heard a lot of key matchups. We've heard a lot of names thrown around, Chris. But who, since you are X Factor expert, who is the X Factor that could swing this game for either team?
What kills me is Sammy just bit my shit. So that's all right. I'm gonna go with something else now, I suppose, because that was definitely one of them, the big one. So I think just overall, it has to be the Rams' rushing defense. It absolutely has to be. But one thing that gives me not excitement, I guess you could say, about the Rams defense is what they showed on Monday night. To me, that gives you a huge idea as far as what they are able to do, because the amount of pressure that they have been able to put on Darnold and just completely just bagwash him. Like, he was just out of the game. He was just done. He was done halfway through the game. I think he was already over it. So the amount of rushing that they were able to do, I think completely changed their game. So if you're looking at that absolutely has to be the X factor, is that their defense has to attack that O-line, and it has to get to Hurts almost every single snap. What you need to do is basically put that game on Hurts' back to make him throw the ball. That has to be. I mean, I don't like to hate on the guy by any means, but I've been really big on the Eagles for the last couple months after the Lions got hurt. Really big on him. I did think it was a huge issue that Hurts was just kind of like, he throws the ball a couple times if he has to, even though you have big AJ Brown out there probably just twiddling his fucking thumbs and reading because he's not getting any play. So, like, why not? So at this point, all that defense has to do is find a way to stop Saquon Barkley from ruining your game. Because if you can put all the pressure on Hurts, like if we're looking at what Hurts did, and you're talking about against the Packers, who quite honestly, like, they stayed in for a very long time when they shouldn't have. That should be a concern to the Eagles, because that game should have been blown out by the first half. That should have been a nasty loss for the Packers, but it wasn't. And they had a quarterback who was also banged up, and he was still able to move around and do what he needed to do with no problem. With Hurts, he was 13 of 21. He only took 21, and he only hit 13 of his passes. 13 in a wild card playoff game. Gotta have it. It's win or go home. You're at home. This should be the point where you're balling out and you're basically putting yourself on the stool to say, hey, this is who the fuck I am. Respect me. And you didn't. It was all about Saquon Barkley. If Saquon Barkley would have been held to, I don't know, 50 or 60, I think this is a completely different game, and we're having a completely different conversation. So it absolutely, at least for the Rams part, it has to be your rushing defense. They've been terrible pretty much all season, but they came out and balled out on Monday night. I expect them, quite honestly, to do the same. I think they are riding on high pier right now. I think their defense is just balling out. So I think they're doing fantastic, and I expect them to do the same. So for the Eagles, you have to get AJ Brown involved. You have to get him involved. He needs to be involved from the first snap, because if it comes down to Hurts having to throw the ball and that's how he's going to win the game, they're going to lose it at home. That's embarrassing. If you have one of the best wide receivers and this dude is on the sideline reading, that is a problem. Everybody else thinks it's funny, it's cute, he's reading. Great. I'm glad you're working on your mental toughness. He needs to be in the fucking game. Like, I don't see how this dude had one fucking catch. One! For 10 yards. And that's your best wide receiver. That makes zero sense to me. Like, you went out and you traded for him. You traded everything in the world for him, and you're not using him. Like, if anything, the battle between AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley should be your riding chip to the Super Bowl. That should be what you're riding off of. But one of them you're not using. He's twiddling his thumb and reading at the end of the day. That's where that X factor has to be. So for the Eagles, you have to get AJ Brown involved, and involved early, and he has to be involved on every single snap. And Saquon Barkley for the Rams has to be just completely demonized. Y'all just have to take him out of the game. I'm not saying hurt him necessarily, but take his will out of the game. That's how you win.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that, Saquon Barkley is clearly going to be the focus. I think that you don't have a 2,000-yard rusher in a season not be the focus of your defense. Like, that guy has to be just locked down. And unfortunately for that, you're opening up yourself for Jalen Hurts to use his legs against you. And that is also just almost as deadly, because Jalen Hurts, like you said, he's mobile. He can get out of the pocket. He can run. And in situations where he's able to do that, if you are focusing on Saquon Barkley, the play action really comes into play. And I don't think anyone is not biting on play action from the Eagles right now based on how that team plays. So, but, back to, you mentioned Sam Darnold. That was one of the worst fucking nights Sam Darnold's ever had since 2019 against the seeing ghost game. It was almost a flashback for him. All right, I mean, dear God, he probably having like nervous breakdown on the sideline. But yeah, this is a very, very good game. I think this is going to be a good game. I don't think either of these teams is really going to walk away like feeling like they dominated the other team in any sort of fashion. I think this is going to be a one-score game for me. And I'm just going to go with my prediction round. Fuck it. I'm already on it. I'm just going to say it. I think that the final score of this game is going to be 24-21 Eagles. I think I just bit Matt's score again. And we're biting Matt's shit left and right. I'm going to go to Matt on this just to see if I bit his shit. Matt, what is your prediction for this game?
Well, my score was 23-20, but I'll tell you where I'm going as far as who wins at the end. This guy I don't even know. You guys are just copying my mindset right now, and I don't like it. I don't like you guys thinking the same way I do. I want you to think completely differently, because then I end up right and you guys all end up wrong. But anyways, okay. Listen, if the Detroit Lions did not exist, the winner of this game would be my Super Bowl pick, because I think these are the next two best teams in the NFC. Both of these two teams have been like Eagles have been all year, and then the Rams obviously down the stretch have been red hot, and I've really liked what I've seen from them. I really like the Eagles as well, and picking against them at home probably isn't a smart thing for me to do, but I'm going to do it. I think the Rams are going to win this game. Listen, Saquon, obviously I love Saquon too, should highly be considered for MVP. He's easily going to walk away with Offensive Player of the Year. But listen, I'm a big coach quarterback guy. Okay. McVay and Stafford, I will take that 100 times out of 100 over Sirianni and Hurts. I just will. Okay. And this young Rams defense, Chris was talking about it a little bit, balling. The last 4 games, I'm taking out week 18 because they were resting starters. Okay. No one has scored in double digits. The Niners had 6, the Jets had 9, the Cardinals had 9, the Vikings had 9. That's 8 points per game, their last 4 games. That's a month worth of football where they've had one of the best defenses in the league. And listen, Chris was talking about if they slow down Saquon Barkley to 50 or 60 yards. If they slow down Saquon Barkley to 50 or 60 yards, this might be a blowout. Okay. The Rams might blow out the Eagles if Saquon Barkley's only got 50 yards. Okay. I was thinking about slowing him down, like going from 255 to like 110. Like if he slows them down to like 110 yards, then they've got a really good shot to win. And if you can do that, then again, you put the pressure on Jalen Hurts. And Chris, you said something too, that they got to get AJ Brown involved right away. If they get AJ Brown involved right away, to me, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. It looked like you couldn't hear me. Okay. If you get AJ Brown involved early, to me, I think that's kind of going away from where you want to go as the Philadelphia Eagles. You want to ride what you did the first time you beat him and just give Saquon Barkley the rock 35 times and not have to worry about AJ Brown again. So for me, listen, I'm going to go with the Rams. And Matthew Stafford, ladies and gentlemen, quietly one of the best playoff quarterbacks of his generation. 103 quarterback rating in the playoffs, 4th all time. 4th best all time among all qualified quarterbacks, and then 297 yards per game, also 4th all time among qualified quarterbacks. So Matthew Stafford shows up when it matters most, and I think they have enough success offensively to win this game. So my score, similar to Joe's, 23-20, but I'm going with the Rams to win in Philadelphia, and then we'll set up the Stafford at Detroit in the playoffs for the 2nd straight year, but this time the winner goes to the Super Bowl, baby, and it's going to be beautiful.
I mean, I'm here for it. I think, like I said, this is probably a lot closer than a lot of people expected to be after the Week 7 matchup. You know, if this was the matchup, a lot of people were like, oh, I'm not sure this is going to happen. But I do think it's going to be a close game, and our score predictions so far go with that. And, you know, a part of me thinks I should go to Sammy next so he has a rebuttal against Matt, but that would make the Eagles homer on this podcast not wait till last after I made the Detroit Lions homer on the podcast wait till last time. So I think I'm going to go to Chris on this one here. Chris, what is your prediction for this game?
Ooh, I do expect it to be a really good one. I do. I think for probably the last, several weeks that we've been having these conversations, I think the Rams have just kind of slowly become just kind of the peak. Not like like the Lions level, but they're getting there, right? So I look at the Eagles because I expect them after the Lions got hurt. I did expect the Eagles to kind of take that number 1 seed and kind of run with it. That did not happen. And then I look at their game. Was it Monday night or Sunday night? One of the two, whatever day their wildcard game was. And when I look at their red zone, right? So the red zone against what I feel is a Packers not so great defense when it comes to red zone attacks. They're 25%. It's terrible. They were 18% in third down offense. Again, this should have been a game that they ran away with, and you're not winning in the red zone. You're not winning on third downs. If you're relying on their passing defense, it's 29 in passing offense, right? Over the year, pretty much. So when you're looking at that, and then you're looking at going into the playoffs and what they showed in the playoffs, I think maybe that's what really got me, is they were at home in the playoffs in a win or go home scenario with some of the most aggressive fans I've ever seen in my life. And this is the performance that you kind of start your playoffs with. And I think that's what turned me from the Eagles, that specific moment when the lights are right there. And I don't feel like they really showed up the way that I think a lot of us expected them to show up. So then I look at the Rams, and I love putting people into like the same scenario as like a movie. So I'm putting the Rams in that same equation as Katniss Everdeen, right? Nobody gave them a shot. during the early part of the season, but then they caught fire, and they've been on fire ever fucking since. So I'm taking the Rams over the Eagles 28-13, and Hurts takes 3 sacks and a pick 6 to end the game.
And you made a really good point, because if you were to tell me that the Eagles defense picked off Jordan Love 3 times, I would expect this Eagles team to have scored at least 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, something like that. They won 22-10. They had 290 yards of total offense. All right, like that right there is concerning to me, even though, as Sammy said, this was a kind of underrated Packers defense. I mean, you're essentially saying at that point in time, you got short field after short field after short field and couldn't convert with a team and an offensive line that's supposed to be able to dictate the flow of the game because of how, smash mouth in your face you are. But I digress.
It's like time. You want to flip your pick down there, Joe.
You know what?
Oh, are you flipping?
I think I will. You guys have convinced me.
Oh, is he?
Joe, you are so weak. You know that. You are so weak.
Dude, I don't take much, man. I don't take
My
much.
goodness.
I don't take much. I think I'm going
to let Sammy be the lone wolf. I didn't actually think that was going to happen.
I'm going to let Sammy be the lone wolf here and tell us why the Eagles are beating the Rams. Sammy, tell me why the Eagles are beating the Rams.
It's simple. I mean, you can try to chalk up that Monday night football game against the Vikings as this elite performance by the Rams defense, but I already showed you that 13 of the pressures that happened against Sam Darnold were past 3 seconds. So we're talking about quarterback play that was pretty bad. It was pretty bad QB play. On top of that, yes, I understand, the passing offense of the Eagles is not very good. I already alluded to that. It's not like the passing defense of the Rams is that much better. Now, I understand your statistics the last 4 games against the Cardinals, against the Niners, against the Jets. Wow, the Jets, such a great team. I understand your point.
Rodgers looked good against your Dolphins.
All right, okay, first of all, let's not get petty here, okay? We're both in Cabo right now, okay? We're both in Cancun, all right? I don't want to hear it for you, okay? I don't want to hear that. Don't get petty, because I'm about to be the only one right about this prediction, by the way. Look, the Eagles, yeah, their passing offense isn't that good, but their rushing offense is one of the best in football. You're facing an average defense. I don't think it's that, like an average defense. The Packers, if I think the Packers defense is at these top 10, I think the Rams defense is like 15, maybe 20, top 15, 20 range. I get it. They might have a better pass rush, but they don't, in my opinion, they're facing right now an elite offensive line, something that they have not really faced. They did not face an elite offensive line against the Niners. They did not face that against the Cardinals. They definitely did not face that against the Jets. So, quite frankly, I'm looking at the Eagles' offensive line. They are going to not comfortably, because I'm a respecter of teams, okay? I respect teams. My uncle is ironically a Rams fan. If he's watching this, I apologize for this. I do think the Eagles are going to win this game, and it's going to be because of Saquon Barkley. The passing defense of the Rams, it might be okay in this game, but it's not going to matter because Jalen Hurts is going to have all the time in the world to get A.J. Brown those looks. And Saquon Barkley, it's going to be a field day because of all the gaping holes that he's going to plow through. So with that being said, look, I love the Rams. I'm going to be rooting for the Rams even. I'm just a realistic analyst when it comes to dissecting these games. I'm very, very realistic, unlike my fellow colleagues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the actual final score. It is going to be 27-21. I do believe that the Eagles are going to be running all over the Rams. Again, I do think Jalen Hurts is going to do just enough to win the game as he did against the Packers. And I think evidently, while I respect Matthew Stafford and his legacy, I respect Cooper Kupp, and I respect the great Puka Nacua. Love you, Puka. It's the number 1 passing defense. The front seven's going to get pressure against this Rams offensive line that, by the way, isn't that good. I got the Eagles winning this game, and honestly, it's going to feel so good to be the only one right in this panel, man. I'm very excited about next week.
You need a win.
I don't need a win because I don't even like the Eagles like that. I just like being right. So, yeah.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.